Good morning. I got this guy painted. Spent half the day working on other vehicles, but as you saw, I have a short pipe here. This pipe fits into this pipe, and then I'm bolted on right here, and then this guy we welded it on. So I'm just putting a little bit of Loctite on there, that way it doesn't fall off from the vibration. And I'm just using some set screws on here. These are 1/4 28s. I made 4 of them. It's probably an overkill, but it's better than not having enough. So most of the weight's being carried on the bottom. Here's just basically holding it so it doesn't have any kind of swing out. And then the set screws are just for the vibration so it doesn't rattle around. I then do a bolt on right here because otherwise I would have to grow something on here, put another piece of metal here, and I really didn't want to get into that. Perfect. Nothing hits. It's good. There's plenty of room for the legs. So this is mostly just a brush guard, that way this doesn't get hit by a limb. And this is a good place for it, that way everybody knows where it is, so it's always on inside, and it's protected enough that it won't get damaged by anything. So what is on the agenda for today? So today I'm going to be tackling the wiring finally. So I got everything set up. Reasons for why I started this project. The wiring. The wiring's horrible in this guy. The factory wiring for the engine is fantastic. They have the nice connectors. So this is one of the connectors. It's beautiful, like it's sealed everything. And then this is what the OEM HummerBee does. So they use these kind of blade connectors and these kind of relays. These are okay in the car. Same thing with these fuse blocks. It is not okay for something that's going to get wet, something that's going to be out in the dust. The dust is going to pack this guy up completely, and there's going to be no, this is going to just wiggle around and you're going to start losing contact. Things are going to stop working. The switches that they use, here's the switches that they use from here. They look from the outside like they look like they're okay. This is what the bottom looks like. These are completely open switches, meaning that there's no seal between them. They're just plastic connections, or one fits inside the other plastic wise. These are not weatherproof connections. The module itself, the electronic control module, it is a waterproof module. However, they do not like to be in the sun. So this module that was right here is being moved to up here. It will still get wet once in a while, but that's okay. But the most important part of it is that it will not be in the sun all the time. And I did not want to mess with making some kind of cover here or anything like that. So, what are the choices for wiring? Alright, so let's talk about wiring. One of the biggest complaints about our forklift before I purchased it was its wiring was not great. And I knew that going into it, but it's the best on the market for its capabilities. So I knew I could change the wire on it. I know that because on both of the other swingers, I've changed the wiring completely out. A lot of people hate wiring, and I think it's mostly from not understanding of how much work you have to put into the physical connections where they meet, and the whole ecosystem has to be watertight. You're always going to want to assume that it's going to be underwater. Even stuff that's on the inside, I would say go shoot for the make it absolutely weather tight, then you should be okay. So let's go over a couple of connections that I've seen. So these are house connections. Please don't use them on automotive. They won't work. Then you have these kind of splice connections. Same thing. This is going to pierce the integrity of the wire, and it's going to introduce water into the system because it is not sealed. Then we have these butt connections. Same thing. It's not a very sturdy design, so you're only going to crimp it from two sides usually. So these are typical crimpers for the butt connectors, and they only squeeze it from two sides. I only have these because they usually come in kits, and I just keep them because in case I need an emergency. These are much better. These are solder ones. So there's a little bit of solder inside, and then there's a little bit of sealant on the outside. These are much better. Still not my cup of tea, but it is what it is. Let's go on to fuses. Fuses come in different varieties. So these are single fire fuses. So if it goes over one time, it pops it. These are some of the fuse holders. These are pretty good ones. These are somewhat weather resistant. They're not directly water resistant, but they will keep you dry for some time if they're mounted correctly. If they're mounted upside down, they're going to fill up with water and they're going to blow. I prefer to run these if I do have to run fuses. These are resettable circuit breakers. So when the fuse pops, when this thing pops, it will wait till the circuit cools down, and then it will reinitialize. Then you need relays. So relays come in different flavors. These are the relays like that is on the forklift right now. So, and you can attach different ways to the relay. So this is not a weather tight relay. You can see like right here, there's a you can pop this open mechanically, and you can just look on the inside. Everything's not sealed. These are a little bit better, still not watertight. These are coming much closer, so there's a special socket that fits into here, and it will have a seal on the outside. So these are much better if you have to use one. These I don't recommend because once again, everything's open. There's no seal on the back. Anything that I use for, I need one relay, one circuit breaker, I use this kind of a style. So this is a one relay, so you have an input and a ground. So usually 12 volts and a ground. 12 volts is going to your switch is going 12 volts, and then it connects two switches. So it fits into one of these modules, and then you fit one of these resettable circuit breakers. And then once you find a place where you want to mount it, right there. So there's a nice seal right here. It's watertight. And the connections, the wire goes through a loom, basically. So it depends on what size you have. So this is a big one. And then they make smaller ones. So they're particular for what diameter they are. And then if you're not using a cavity, you need to have a plug. So this is just a plug for it. And they fit right in here, so that way it makes it watertight. For switches that are on the forklift right now, they're very similar to this. This is an open design, so you have blade connections coming out of it. So these are not water resistant switches. They do make water resistant switches. So this is one. This is a marine grade switch, and you can see right there that inside there is a seal. There's a boot inside, and then you would put another boot on top of it. So this is made for marine. It is completely sealed. But these are not cheap. These are, I think they start around $40 each. This is what I'm currently running on our forklifts. So the problem is you need all of this. You need a relay, you need a switch, and you need a circuit breaker. What are the options? So this is one of the options. This is, they sell these kits for like Jeeps and off-road guys. But once again, this is not a sealed kit. You can see from this. This is I took it off my Jeep. A guy before me installed this. This is good, but you can see already corrosion here and corrosion on the actual pins here. So this is not going to work very well in harsh environment. Under the hood, you can give it a couple of washes, it'll stop working. Forklift, no way. It's too much vibration. It will probably fail on you in a couple of months, and that's something I can't have. Same thing with the switches. They are made to be on the inside, definitely not on the outside. They do make better. This is on an automotive one. This is what our Freightliner uses. This is a good solution, but a lot of wiring. Like, you still need switches. So these guys would run something with a plug like this. So you'd pre-wire them all. You would pre-wire all the wires, and then you'd run them to here, and then you'd have one main bus that would go to your battery, hopefully through a circuit breaker. So I'm going to go a little bit different this time around. I am going to use by a company called Switch Pros. So this is the whole thing. There are 17 outputs that this guy can handle, 150 amps total. Every output, so there are 16 outputs that are actual outputs that can be for power, and then there's one low voltage ground switching. But so all of this, so you just wire all of this to your actual lights. So you can wire this directly to the lights. You put the ground of the light to the ground, to the common ground, and then you put one of these guys to the actual power to here. That's it. You don't need a relay, you don't need a circuit breaker, because this guy does that. It has solid state relays and solid state circuit breakers, and you can reduce that to what you want. So if you only have a load that you're only gonna know, like this one right here, this is only pulling 3.3 amps. So a 5 amp circuit breaker would work just fine on this. So you can limit this guy to make sure you don't blow one of your fuses. And this is the buttons for it. So this completely watertight. This is potted right here. And through an app, you can set what each output does. So you can have, if like what we're going to set up on our forklift is, I want to have to be able to have wigwag. So wigwag is basically when an emergency vehicle or like our forklift is on the side of the road, I want the lights to flash on and off like this, like our red lights. But they're going to be wired for different circuits, so I want it to be able to wigwag. But you can program one light, one button to do that. And same thing, we're also going to do, like, we're going to do a horn on here, and we're going to put all of the electrical functionalities to this. Now, what is the reason for this? First of all, it's very thin, and I can get rid of a lot of this kind of stuff, and it's all in one place. If it fails, I can disconnect, plug a new module in, and I'm ready to go again. But these guys are, this kind of stuff is made for racing applications. This not particular one, but the practices that they use, this is what guys in the race community would use. They would just use a little bit higher end connections. They would use a spin-on connections with gold plating and stuff like that. They really want to make sure that they have connections, and they would run 2 of everything. So every light would have its own power output, or they sometimes, even if it's a vital circuit, they would run 2 of them just in case one fails, the other one will pick up and go. So they would actually run like 2 or 3 or 4 of these guys. By no means this is a how-to guide. This is just an overview of what we've gone through, what works, what doesn't. I know that these kinds of connections on a forklift, they don't work. They fail. And what's worse is they're gonna fail sometimes. So you're gonna have an on and off problem. You're driving down in the middle of the night with a forklift, and all of a sudden your lights go out, and then they go back on, and they go out, and they go back on, and then you get it back to the shop, trying to figure out what's going on, try to wiggle some wires. They work just fine, but out in the rain they start flickering. I mean, that's the worst thing. And I've had that happen to me personally, where our lights went out on the whole forklift. A limb caught it, stripped the wire, touched the chain, and the whole forklift. I saw at night the lights went out, and I could see the glow from all the wiring. They completely burnt out. I had a mag flashlight, and that's how I unloaded the rest of the hives with it. And believe me, that's not fun. So I really don't want to do that. So I'd rather spend a week here, a month, it doesn't matter, in the shop making that so I never have to come back to that. All the wiring that I did, all the lights on the other forklifts, they're all solid state relays. They're not as complex as this, but these guys didn't exist back then. So it's all solid state, but they're all individually wired. So this is no brainer to do this because it's much easier on the wiring and it's all in one place and it's controlled. It's very controlled of how power is distributed. So instead of having all of this, I can just replace that. This has 6, this has 17. I mean, it's no brainer. And believe me, money is not that big of a deal when you're in the middle of the orchard. You have only 1 or 2 days to get the bees out. There's rain coming. The farmer needs the bees out or in, and you're struggling with your forklift. Those things are invaluable. So we build ours like a race car. Like it works no matter what. And if there's something wrong, there's always going to be a backup. That's why I have red lights. I'm going to have amber lights this time because apparently they're better at night. So we're going to try some. I run pretty much the best lights money can buy for the same reason, because I need it to work no matter what. All right, that's enough monologue. Let's go get this thing started.